Hello, Jamf Nation. We're excited to have you with us today. We're going to talk about SaaS application comparison and the need to look at SaaS applications in a completely different way because of the explosion of cloud that's happening in our world today. I'm joined by Uri Aramati, who's the co-founder of Tori. Say hi, Uri.
Hey everyone, it's great to meet you and thank you for joining us. I'm thrilled to show you today one of our latest capabilities of how IT pros are rationalizing their SaaS applications by using our app comparison capability. Give it to you,
I'm Chris
Chris.
Shakarian. Oh, thank you. I'm Chris Shakarian. I will take you guys through a couple of story slides that we have that'll really frame that up really well. We believe that the world has fundamentally changed. I mean, we all see this firsthand. We love our cloud applications. Think about how many SaaS applications we had in our midst back in 2011 and where we are today. The real number is actually north of 10 or 15,000 applications, and it just continues to explode. As I said, we love our SaaS apps. We use them to understand our businesses, to grow our businesses, to act on our organizations. And we use them every single day in just about every single function in our organizations. But the truth is, there's a little bit of a dark side to SaaS, and it's the SaaS swamp. It's those applications that have come and gone in our tech stack that might not be useful anymore to us, might be used by a handful of people, might be redundant with other parts of our tech stack, the neglected ones. And we're here to talk about the severity and size of that problem. I mean, we all kind of read the headlines with what happened with COVID. Everyone went to the cloud in a much bigger way. The fun thing is, Tori, being a SaaS management platform, sits on a bunch of applications of some of the most iconic companies in the world. And we saw the data behind the headlines. Back in 2019 in July, the average number of applications that companies had in their stack and that we were finding as net new applications that they were adding to their stack was somewhere around 14 applications. That's every single month a company was adding about 14 applications, new apps to its stack. And then the pandemic hit, and we see a huge spike in January of 2020. The average app count went up to 30 per month that are new. And we kind of see the new normal now going forward, where most organizations that we work with are seeing about 18 to 19 net new applications every single month. And so I can't stress enough, that's new applications added every single month. That's adding to this growing disparity between perception and reality. If you ask most IT pros, how many apps do you think you have in your organization? Back in 19, they'd say, oh, well, somewhere around 80, maybe 100. Today, they might say 120, 150. The real number is 3, 4, 5 times as much. And it's leading to the SaaS swamp, as we said, right? The numbers on the right are very alarming, to say the least. 35% of licenses are actually just sitting there unused and wasted. By 2025, Gartner predicts that 99% of cloud breaches are going to be caused by preventable configuration and user errors. That's across all of cloud. But think about this. I mean, even things that are not, nefarious actions like autofill, filling in something from your previous employer, and all of a sudden you're in a sensitive system used by your previous employer. Those kind of things happen every day, and they're tied to simple configuration or offboarding errors. And the last statistic that's really compelling is so much of our world is governed by things that are kind of really tactical. Think about a new employee that's being onboarded, and we need to light them up in 20, 30 different systems that are related to perhaps the marketing stack. They might be a marketing employee. Well, all of that is manual. You log into every system, you light the employee up, and then you subsequently have to turn them off. This is the SaaS swamp. This is really an output of the fact that we have hundreds of applications and we need to manage all of them, and we manage them all in disparate ways. The truth is, and this is the first kind of elephant in the room, is it's nearly impossible to objectively measure the ROI that we have from these applications. I mean, how can you look at these apps side by side if every application has its own user interface, reporting capabilities, usage metrics, and even what they make available, in terms of usage data via their APIs? We have to log into all of these places just to put together a cohesive picture of what our users are actually using and adopting and what they're not using anymore. Which systems are continuing to drive digital innovation, success, growth, and which have waned in their importance and are just sitting there and eroding our budgets. In order to really think about a true apples to apples comparison, these are the questions that we kind of think about and want to answer. Are similar apps being used in parallel? Do we have some redundancy between multiple, I don't know, marketing automation systems or finance systems or, God forbid, collaboration systems, which are built on the very premise of actual interaction between users, right? If somebody's using Teams, one team is using Teams and another is using Slack, that creates a disparity that actually breaks the core of what those applications are intended to drive in our business. As I said earlier, which applications are waxing and waning in adoption and popularity? Are there any licenses that are just over provisioned? Can one application actually be supplanted with another? And honestly, as we think about the end of the year, where do we invest in for the new year? Where do we want to double down and continue to drive innovation in our business? And where do we see opportunities to pull back and use resources in a different way? These are all the questions that we now parse together and piece together through manual processes. We might look at CASB tools, we might look at Excel spreadsheets where we pull raw data into and try to build together and piece together a cohesive image of what's going on in our SaaS stack. And there is an imperative, a growing imperative with IT professionals to really wrap their head around the cloud. As we said earlier, so much of our organizations operate in the cloud and use cloud applications that they're really core to the strategic risk, financial, and operational profiles of our business. They've become an integral part of our DNA of how we operate as a business. I'll give you an example. Strategically, one of the things that we're seeing happening is that up to 75% or more of applications are actually being provisioned by line of business users. At the end of the day, we saw the explosion of SaaS happening and all of these purpose-built applications that are built for different departments or even subsets of different departments. Take revenue acceleration inside of sales or marketing automation inside of marketing. These things are so narrow that our business leaders are the ones in the best position oftentimes to make decisions around which are going to drive the biggest business impact. And so, what role does that leave and create for IT to really look at and support and fuel the innovation of the business? I'll give you a really simple example. A marketer can come to the IT team and say, I want HubSpot. And they would say, well, we might have Marketo. We have Marketo. Why do you want HubSpot? And at that point, the IT team has two options in the world of where they're not necessarily able to deeply introspect what's going on in each of these applications. They can either say yes, okay, or no. And we think the world is much more nuanced than SaaS. IT organizations need to be empowered with actual apples to apples usage metrics between systems to be able to say, well, look, yeah, actually, your team really is adopting HubSpot and it's correlating to these business outcomes. So we should invest there and we should look at offboarding this other tool perhaps, or vice versa. So that strategic portion of the program and the IT leadership's ability to really introspect and inform strategic conversations with line of business is a key thing that can happen in the cloud that really wasn't available to us before when we were dealing with on-prem and deploying images to laptops and deploying software that was kind of shrink wrapped back in the day. But it doesn't stop there. Data exposure risk is another area. Think about how much data flows and sensitive data flows through all of our cloud applications. Think about the onboarding workflows of, again, I'll channel my inner marketer, a HubSpot tool, where after you set up your account, the first thing it asks you to do is, okay, now go ahead and integrate your systems. Oh, I'm going to plug in my Calendly, my Zoom. I've got this system, that. The more the better, right? Well, not always. I mean, the unbeknownst to the marketer who might be trying to just do their best job and plug everything in and make it all seamlessly work together, you now have that sensitive CRM or marketing database data flowing out to these freemium applications that are outside the purview of IT teams. And so the risk factor really becomes if IT organizations are saddled and responsible for protecting sensitive data in cloud applications, but they don't see most of their actual application stack, how can they effectively do that? It's an unfair kind of dissonance that happens. And it's something that has to be resolved, right? We can't just stick our heads in the sand and say, yeah, you know what? We're not going to look at those cloud apps. We're going to kind of look at our traditional stack. And if we just do our level best against the status quo, we'll be fine. We talked a little bit about the other things operationally. This idea, we talk about it internally at Tori, edit, copy, edit, paste, so much talent, what a waste. How much time do we spend on mundane things like, I just need to light up this user and give them the right permissions in A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J number of apps. And then when we offboard that user, I need to go ahead and roll through all of that, and in some cases, maybe even as in the case of perhaps G Suite or some other tool, Dropbox, migrate data over to their manager. Those are all kind of manual operations that are time consuming and frankly become broken really quickly when you're starting to operate on hundreds of applications and thousands of users. And last but not least, spend and money and budget. Our budgets went up significantly when we went to the cloud. I mean, particularly around COVID, where we really needed to go remote first and support teams in a meaningful way. But traditionally and year over year, as we engage with the new normal, it's not like our budgets are going to grow that significantly continually, right? And so when we look at waste and we look at applications that might just be sitting there and are either over provisioned or completely unused, how do we introspect that and identify those things so that we can pull back um, large chunks of our budget? I can't count how many stories we have with our customers where we plug Tori in, even to 1,000-person organization, and they uncover $1 million in savings in SaaS. I mean, it's very real. It gets very real fast. The numbers get very, very big. And of course, there are other things around spend. How do we look at, are we getting a fair price? Are we double purchasing applications and like Expensify in our formal corporate system? All of those things come to bear. And I think the voiceover here and really the headline is that in the world of SaaS, we're able to introspect these applications very deeply and know what's going on. It's not like the on-prem world where sometimes these things are walled off to us. And so we really have the imperative to make the most of our SaaS stack and really fuel our innovation and optimize things because we can do it now. This is precisely why we built a new feature into Tori called application comparison. Our customers were asking for this ability to compare many apps side by side and look at, how do I stop pulling stuff into Excel and trying to parse activity data? And how do I stop trying to piece together many different insights from manually from multiple systems and look at applications side by side, put one up against another and see where adoption is and what folks are doing with it. And that's what we did here. We really gave our users the ability to look at adoption over time of multiple applications that might overlap in features, to look at profile and security risks, to identify overlapping users, because the answer might not always be, oh yeah, I'm just going to turn this other application off. The answers are much more nuanced than that, right? Like you may actually be okay with overlap and waste in some cases if you're experimenting with a new application or a new stack that might actually fuel growth. And we also allow our users to compare license costs side by side and understand really deeply what's going on with cost and usage. And in doing that, We really are intending to get to this idea of understanding the ROI that you're getting out of your cloud applications. And ROI for us really is, how do we look at usage and adoption of the application? How do we look at the cost profile of the applications? And how do we pull that image together into a cohesive view where we're not running around between 50, 100 different systems trying to piece it together, but we have this beautiful HQ dashboard looking at us, allowing us to parse this data side by side and allowing us to have really strategic and informed conversations with our business leads. So I'm going to hand it over to Uri Aramati now, who's going to give you a little bit of a peek into this amazing new feature that we launched. The one thing I love about Tori is the interface is just so clean and simple. It shows you what you need at exactly the right time, doesn't overbear you with so many different views, dashes, so that it becomes really easy for you to understand what your next best action is with your SaaS stack. With that, I'll hand it over to Uri.
All right. Thank you, Chris. And I'm excited to show you everyone our application comparison feature. And this is really something that customers have been asking for us. And we spend a lot of time planning and working together with the customers to really understand what is the most efficient way for us to show you this data and to use all the information that you already have on Tori to get just the right information you need to better rationalize apps, to save spend, to become more operational efficient, and to be more secure. Without getting too much into the basics of Tori, this is Tori. And all the data that you see here comes in automatically from our library of integrations. We have more than 100 integrations. You connect to your stack and your environment. And Tori built the application list for you. Your inventory, your database, the list of all your apps. So for the first time, you know what is really going on in the company. And now we added this new capability. Now you can compare apps automatically using a lot of data points. There can be more than 20 different data points that Tori is triangulating in order to show you what you need to see. And this is an amazing capability that, based both on top of our technology, our huge database and brain, and the amazing UI that you see right here. So let's see what happens here. Tori will automatically show you similar apps that are being used in your company for the same purpose. So you might have Box and Dropbox that are being used. You might have different video conferencing tools, HR tools, or different project management tools. And Tori knows how to surface them for you based on different parameters and features and use cases that Tori identified on these apps. So let's take an example. Let's jump into Monday and Asana, right? So just with a click in a second, you're going to see everything you need to see. So what happens here is you see that Asana is a sanctioned app. You're using it, and as an app owner, you have an active contract. You see when it ends. You see how much you pay for that. At the same time, you have this app, Monday, that was discovered by Tori. For now, it's a shadow IT app. And there are no contracts and no expenses yet. And you can even add more apps that you know that are being used for that purpose. You can add any app that you want. Let's say you know that Airtable is being used in the company, or even another one, let's say Urike. Different apps that are used for project management. So you're going to see right here all the information you need about the contracts of the apps, the owner, and the status of these apps. These apps are sanctioned as well. And then you can even see more information. You can see, all right, when Tori identified it, when it was starting to be used, what data source Tori gets its information from. And as I mentioned, there can be more than 20 different data sources coming from the Slack integration to Asana, or your Okta account, or the browser extension, the endpoint detection tool, or your spend systems, or the direct integration. Tori will also show you the different permission that it's granting, either your Google environment or your Slack environment. And you can see, for example, that Airtable is providing needs high-risk permissions, such as managing apps or different parts like that, while Monday just profile or email address or things like that. Obviously, you can minimize it, and then it goes even more interesting. So here, you can see the trends of users. And it's very easy to see right here that, yes, Asana is a sanction tool, but you see that the usage is declining. The number of people that are using it is declining, and they're probably transitioning into Monday. Something that is very easy to see, and here you see just the point when they switch. You can even drill deeper and see, okay, who are the people that are using Monday? Do they have license? How much they are using it? And so on. When they use it the last time, and many more. Everything you can export right directly from here. And since Story is connected also to your HR system or your identity management system, you can slice and dice according to different departments. If it's based on Azure or Bamboo HR or Okta or even G Suite, you can see what departments or sites or groups are using these apps. In addition, you can see here you have these two apps, Airtable and Wrike. They are being used pretty much consistently, but with a low number of users. And then you can go deeper. You can understand, okay, how is the usage of these apps? How much are they being used? What's the engagement level? You can see that Monday is frequently used. It's 11 days on average, which means every second working day. Asana is periodically used, and Airtable and Wrike are rarely used. And this information is presented to you automatically and very easy to digest. Today, in order to see all this data in one place, you need to go to many different systems, export, pivot, and using different spreadsheets just to understand what's going on. So you see the increase in Monday. And then you can go another step further. And then you can see, all right, I know now that these apps are being used in the company for similar purpose. And I know that there are some similar users that are using both. But let's see who are these users. Where is the overlap? You can say either just users that are using that. You can see them, people that have licenses. And then you can dive deeper and you can say, okay, Asana and Monday, who are the people that are using both? And you see exactly just the people that are using both Monday and both Asana. You see all of them has licenses on Asana and on Monday. But these people are not using Asana anymore because they are using Monday. You see in transition, you see it's being used almost every day of the month. And it's very easy to understand the transition, the departments, even on a personal level, and understand what's going on. And you can even reach out to these people or their managers, understand, okay, what is exactly the motives for them for the transition and what's going on. And you see Wrike and Airtable. Wrike, maybe it's an app that's being used by a different department. There's no parallel, there's no overlap. You can just jump in and see, okay, what is going on with Wrike? And that's where you get data in order to rationalize apps. That's where you can see, okay, I know there are all these tools that are being used here. How can I really understand what is going on with a click and understand what are the trends in my company? What are the apps that has the overlap, that have the similar usage or similar use cases that people are exploring? And everything is available here for you automatically in seconds. As Chris mentioned, we invested a lot of iteration with our customers and prospects to understand what is the best way for you to get all the relevant information you need, and you have it right here. Obviously, you can go and you can create whatever custom comparison you want. You can decide whatever apps that you need. And this is Tori's app comparison capability. And now I'll send it back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Ari. That was great. And honestly, when we show this kind of stuff to people, they're blown away because they've never seen it all in one place before. So many times we are dealing with spreadsheets as these kind of endpoints where we look at things, right? Or we might be introspecting deeply a couple of really big enterprise applications that we spend a lot of money on. But to really see your entire stack in one place is really, really powerful. And to see it so simply and cleanly presented so that you can find your next best action. You can message users, turn them on, off. You can create automations to actually do things that are repeatable motions like onboarding and offboarding users or migrating data and those types of things. It's really, really incredible. The last thing that I'll reiterate is to say that Tori is the leader in discovery. And we have some secret sauce inside of that, but really a lot of it rests on the number of integrations and depth of integrations that we have, as well as our browser extension and the ability to sit along for the ride with every one of our business users and observe new applications as they are lit up in real time and present that in a central hub. It's really, really powerful. It's incredible. And it's so simple all in one place. There's really nothing like it in the market. We love to tell our customer stories. They speak louder than anything we could say or show to you. And we've got countless stories, as I said earlier, where user plugs something in, saves $500,000 or $1 million. User plugs something in, discovers 800 or more applications. This is one of them, Payoneer, an incredible, innovative company who experienced really continuous growth, both through organic and acquisitions as well, right? And so imagine multiple organizations coming together and there are overlapping applications. They knew that they had some overlap in the stack, but they really didn't know how much or the scale of the challenge that stood before them. So they plugged Tori in and they realized that, wow, this whole decentralized thing is real. People are procuring applications outside of IT left and right, and that's fine. I mean, that's a core tenet of their innovation stance in the market. They found over 800 applications, immediately started to eliminate redundant and duplicate applications. And this was done across 24 different office locations with thousands of users. That's really complex, right? That immediately takes away the ability of an IT team to lean over. Of course, in our COVID world, right? We're not leaning over to each other, but even to hop on a Zoom call with one or two or five people to discover what's going on, having that central HQ and seeing it all in one place really, really brought it together and allowed the IT leadership in this organization to really focus on pools of overlap and applications that were redundant and other applications that had users using both of them. And Sam said it best. I mean, they really use Tori to make smarter strategic decisions and to look at driving adoption and reducing their cost over time. It's been a complete game changer for them, not just on the cost side of things and not just on the redundancy side of things, but also from a risk management standpoint. And really from being able to put themselves in a posture where they're using data to inform their decision making with their tech stack. So look, we covered a lot, but it really is all centered around this elephant in the room. With SaaS exploding in an exponential way, our users are adopting applications to drive their business more and more every single day. And we love that. We embrace that because that fuels innovation, transformation, and growth in our organizations. But it also creates this pressure point for us to introspect applications side by side and to really get in there and proactively manage our SaaS stack. We can't sit back anymore and just take the budget in and take the usage in and hope that we're optimized, right? With those stats that we saw with 35 or more percent of licenses just sitting there unused. And with all of these applications giving us a way to understand what's going on inside of them, it's incredibly powerful and important for us to start really deeply introspecting these applications. The one thought I'll leave you with this. With hundreds of applications being lit up in our stack and the reality between perception and reality being hundreds and orders of magnitude, right? We think we have 100 apps. We have 3, 4, 500 apps that we don't know about. It's time that we let software manage software. It's time that we let software augment our ability to manage it and to give us a clean view into what's going on. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. If you're interested in Tori, please go to our website, torihq.com, or follow us on Twitter. Love to hear from you. We always love talking to new customers, prospects, or even just discovering new problems and new challenges that we haven't thought of before. Thank you.